Hi, all. Welcome to another episode. Last week, an interesting thing happened. One of my mentees was asking, I was talking to them about customer journey, and they said, I want to put a if else kind of a condition in the customer journey. So, the customer journey that we had given them was pretty simple and flat, right? A single flow. So, they were telling, most of the cases we have a if else kind of a thing. And how do I actually do that in the customer journey, right? I'm not able to make it. So that kind of triggered me this process. Let me share what I'm kind of thinking quickly so that we could have a discussion around that. I think one of the key things that came up, which I kind of understood, was that there is a difference between having a customer journey and a process itself, right? So if I kind of take a standard thing like, let's say, the process of software development, this would be the typical process that we are into: bid for a project, negotiate a deal, get requirements, do design, develop code, like that. But this is the process. As you can see, it's pretty and I haven't even double clicked it, right? This is probably at a 10,000 feet level. At this level itself, it's pretty complicated. Then when you kind of take a customer journey, and here the customer happens to be the developer, it kind of simplifies to do design, develop code, test, and deploy. Maybe you can add another one called understand requirements as the first step. And if I look at the same process, right, again, it's complicated. Now, if I look at it from a client partner, maybe the account executive, or in some companies, they have a business relationship manager who's the interface with the business. If they look at it, right, when there is a project to be there, they would actually kind of propose a project, negotiate a closer deal. If it's an internal project, maybe get budget approvals, wait for the development to finish, do a user coordination, and either collect money or close the project charter. Then, if I kind of look at it purely from a client perspective, it would be something like select a vendor, negotiate a deal, finish development, do acceptance, pay money, and accept. I kind of so that's quickly what I just wanted to share, the difference between a customer journey and a process. And I think one thing which kind of struck me is we have been used to process based development. It is like structured software development, right? In olden days, SID as we used to call it, where you draw a process and then convert that just into code. And probably my opinion was that we are dehumanizing a human process by just doing the process. And probably when we do a customer journey, we humanize it again and start looking at it from a customer perspective. So I just wanted to have a discussion around that on customer journey. How key is it? And it doesn't mean we can throw away all the process diagrams. And where do process diagrams start? When do we start with the customer journey? How does that help us? So the key discussion in that case was like, let's say they wanted to do a request for a particular customer, and they said, when a request is entered, first we check whether the customer exists or not. If the customer exists, then we do something else. If the customer doesn't exist, we do something else, like that. Then I realized, actually, if the customer doesn't exist, then that is a different customer journey of provisioning a user or adding a user to the system. That's a different customer journey. Now, the complication comes because when I am ordering something, I have started off a completely different customer journey, which I'm not expecting as a user, and that confuses me. So, if you look at that as a customer journey, would it help? Or do customer journeys also kind of point us in the direction of a business service at a high level? Or if you boil it down, does it also help you identify, let's say, a good microservice or an API which has customer value in it, rather than a technical endpoint, which we kind of pitfall we fall into usually? So these were the things which I just wanted. So to begin with, right, I'll just ask a couple of you a question, right? What do you think of just what I said, right? Is my thinking true, off track, what? Gaurav, you want to go first?
And then your thinking process definitely seems to be perfectly right to me. But for long, I've not been thinking about on that direction because more than the customer journey, we shifted a lot of focus to customer experience. So, in terms of your quick question, yeah, is your thinking process right? Answer is yes. But I probably need to think a little bit more before I could say
Okay.
how would I differentiate between the two.
That's a good point, Gaurav. So one of the things, kind of, okay. So we'll come back to the Deepak, Gautam, Venkat. You guys have got any thoughts on this? Like,
So I have some thoughts around that. So one of the things which you mentioned was the process versus the journey, right? So you see, I think that is just semantics in that sense. Means process is also a series of steps, journey is also a series of steps. It really doesn't matter. It's just a series of steps which have to happen for your customer to use Gaurav's words, have an experience, right? So now the question is, what are you trying to get out of this series of steps, right? Means, are you trying to make these series of steps better? Are you trying to make these series of steps shorter? uh, that all relates to the experience, right? The experience, maybe experience should be long, right? If you want to go and enjoy a movie, the experience should be long, right? Or at least long enough for you to enjoy it, right? If you are doing a purchase of something online, you want the experience should be short, right? And it should be quick, and they should be able to do it. So the method which I have seen, uh, which comes again from lean and manufacturing and some of these things, is they call it the value stream, right? So instead of looking at these series of steps in isolation, as a series of steps just to be executed one after the other, you look at that, what is the value being delivered by this step, right? And who is getting the value out of it, right? Like I said about, so this value could be an experience, this value could be the length of the experience, right? So you can look at it from the value stream perspective. So instead of and the example which you use of the branching out and all those things, that is, I would say, more like a algorithmic approach, right? It's like, I need to solve this in an algorithm, and that's how a software engineer would actually go in and solve that branching problem. This is where the logic follows, right? That is not necessarily a customer journey in that sense, right? That is just breaking down of where the customer wants to go and what options are available and how you branch out and all those things. That is not necessarily the customer journey. That is maybe a series of steps, but customer journey, I would say, if you look at it from the value stream perspective, or what value each step is delivering, that may be a better approach than just trying to make a linear or even a branched out customer journey.
okay. So, Gautam, in your case, right? I think you have obviously a very different profile amongst all of us, where uh, technically you are in a non-IT organization, right? So,
Right.
does it change, or does the same thing somehow happens there also?
So in our scenario, we have two types of customers, right? So one is our internal customers who themselves are okay. Whoever are business stakeholders, we treat them also as a customer, and also the external customers who are our end consumers, right? The consumers of the product. So we have to create a journey map for both the customers that we have. But the interesting question that you have pointed out is the process in the development or on onboarding a new customer, right? So that is where a lot of our business folks lose the patience, because they wanted to solve a problem, and the problem is not that they can plan the problem like 6 7 months back, right? So they come up with a problem, and we also need to provide a quick solution, but a lot of time gets wasted in our entire the process thing. So what happens is we float a RFP, and then the RFP is vetted by a number of customer the vendors, third parties, and they come up back with a lot of questions. We have to answer it back, and then again okay, we finalize the commercials, we go into the commercial team, they vet through the entire commercials and they finalize, okay, these guys are okay, and we also have to evaluate technically, right? So that also takes a lot of time. And after all finalizing everything, the legal aspect would come into it, and that would again eat up a lot of time negotiating, okay, what is the legal terms between you and me, and all those things we'll have to finalize. And by the time we start the project, we already have eaten up some 3-4 months, and the business guys would ask, okay, I gave you a requirement earlier, like 3 months back, and you're coming back saying that you have finalized the partner in 3 months. So that is like, okay, I haven't even solved the problem yet, right? So the process kind of eats up a lot of time, but there is a lot of human element involved in this, right? Because the partner, like I go into a third party agreement, I can even go and start discussing with them and start the work in parallel while these things are getting sorted. But the legalities and all those things would create problems later on. That is the reason we always follow the process and then we start the development.
In this case specifically, right, I think it's kind of the customer here happens to be the, as you said, it's an internal customer wanting something for an external customer, but we get so sucked up into here the process itself, right? It's not just development, but how we use process for our thinking itself, is that these are the steps that we need to, whereas the customer journey in the first step actually is he has a problem with his end customer, and
Right.
that kind of takes backseat, and the process to do this gets precedence.
Exactly.
It's kind of interesting when you were talking about one thing which let me share something here.
Gautam was talking about analysis paralysis. This is what I believe. This is what the business people probably think, that this is it, going into this analysis paralysis.
I think one of the things which kind of both you and Deepak and Gaurav were pointing to, right? Like it's about focusing on customer experience. One small tweak which I had done to a typical customer journey, right, is instead of having them and stuff, I added 3 more simple attributes to them, which is like, what is there a negative emotion associated with that step? Does it have a high turnaround time, or does it oppose the intention of the customer journey itself? It kind of gives me a little more confidence that these attributes kind of capture that, right? If, for example, if the intention is going to be fast and easy for a particular journey, then if that step is working against that, then that means lesser value is being delivered. So for example, if it is like it is opposing the intention, and if the experience is going to be bad, then there will be negative emotion with that. So if you capture that along with that step, probably I think that thing could get captured. I mean, I'm open to kind of saying if there is something that is missing here can be added also. But I was thinking like a customer journey, not necessarily this tool, but to kind of give an idea whether that customer step also explicitly, I've seen it in design thinking, they do catch emotions as a part of that, but the intention, which is the value to be delivered, I guess that's one small tweak I had added to that. Does this any thoughts around this?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, see, when you take the process, so initially I feel that it is only a number of steps you need to follow, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It is a like constant step, and some process you can add 1 or more steps here and there, and things like that. But when you take the customer journey, so the customers are endless, and the possibility of the ideas we are getting also is endless, right? So if you take even if you take the sim farmer, in our case, sim farmer is our end customer, and if you take the customer itself, there are many customers like corporate customers, like small holding customers, medium holding customers. Every customer has a different steps we need to follow, and where the processes comes here is that when we need to stop the customer journey. See, there are endless customers. When you consider the journey, that possibilities also endless. We cannot go after each and every customer journey to address the problem, because that is also could be the endless, right? So then when need to stop is when you should know, so that you can take action on that customer journey and you can move forward.
Is it that you are kind of alluding to that process? Because if there's, I have different types of demographies of customers and different customer journey. Processes kinds of makes it a little easier for me to deal with that scenario.
Kind of, yeah.
Okay.
So sometimes, so in the process, you are fixing that, okay, that within 3 months you need to deliver this. When you are fixing that, then according to that you are setting up the like process. Then within the process you are like calculating. You are taking the customer journeys, how much customer journeys you can accommodate within the time.
That's interesting, Venkat. That's a kind of anti-fractal we get into, right? Like meeting the deadline and delivering it takes higher precedence over unconsciously, right?
Yeah,
like,
sometimes
rather than what customer that we are actually trying to do. It's a real tricky challenge. So, Gaurav, how do you deal with this conundrum?
There is one interesting aspect to this. See, a lot of this process in our world is that while we want to help the customer to be successful based on the customer journey that they want to have, but we want to safeguard our own business, de-risk it. So the process part is both parties are trying to define a process to de-risk their part. As a developer or a system integrator, you define process because you want to de-risk your business. And sometimes people would not say it's for de-risking the business, but they will position it as this is how I differentiate. My development process is different than the other SI. Which I guess I would agree with what I heard from Venkat, that sometimes few of the steps in the process helps in defining things which accelerate. Okay, see, otherwise it's a never-ending conversation between a customer and a provider. That what's the price point, what's the duration. So if process says, do you have a budget? That question made it simple for customer that it's going to cost, how much they are willing to pay. So that's one aspect. But to your question, Kumran, that how do we deal with it? I would say to some extent, a model very similar to the way you said there is an emotion that you capture. So what we started shifting is to, instead of doing pure design thinking, we started shifting to event storming as a concept, wherein you could use design thinking toolset. We still use stickies and things like that, but along with event storming, the way you had a model where you are capturing 4 parameters, we call it as a metadata for each journey step.
Okay.
And in that metadata, we try and capture and say what type of a step it is, or what the good for that step would look like, and what the bad for that step would look like.
Okay.
And then based on that, we assign it into a different persona within our development process. So if something for a good would look like the way Deepak said, maybe when you are registering for an order or you're placing an order, you want that step in the process to be as fast as possible. And as fast as possible is one part, but is your visual experience sufficient enough to keep you excited to stay on the website? So that's what we try and capture with that, what the good looks like and what the bad good looks like. And based on that, we try and generate a couple of things, that which persona in my development process should handle it, and what kind of test cases we need to generate out of it.
Interesting. So you use the word storming. Can you expand on that? What did you mean by that?
So event storming, I would say, is a concept which you could use for a lot of domain-driven design.
Okay.
And in today's time, if you look at, as customers become more and more comfortable with design thinking, as they are processed along with agile development, then at an enterprise level or at a business level, how do you start stitching their business processes? How the business process interaction would happen becomes a challenge, because you can't capture it in a simple design thinking. That's where event storming is a concept which helps. And it became much more popular as microservices became more and more prevalent in our world. Because what it allows us to do is just not to define the customer journey, how the processes interact with each other, but at the outcome of this, it also gives us a good indication that for a process, how many microservices you want to end up with. So you're able to define the domain and the bounded context for that domain, which could start equating to number of microservices.
Interesting. So an event would be, can you give some examples of an event?
So let's say if I stick to the restaurant one, you walk into a restaurant and you want to place an order. Placing an order is an event.
Okay.
But before you place an order, there are a few steps that you took. And for each of those steps, there would be something which looks like a good outcome, and there is something which is not a good outcome.
Okay. So it's kind of analogous to a milestone in a project plan.
Yes. And it's a fairly interesting concept which is picking up, especially if customers are looking at microservices, because that's what I'm dealing with for the last couple of years. So maybe if there are parallel things that people are doing for customer journey, probably I'm ignoring to that, because we started looking at event storming because it shortens my process.
And I think that's actually very interesting, right? It kind of helps you focus on what really matters to the customer, that event, right? So we can kind of get focused on, so in this case, like for example, is the customer already existing? Is he added? That's an event. Or has he added it to a shopping cart? Or has he clicked on the buy button? So it kind of helps the team or all the stakeholders rally around that event, and probably as maybe I think actually you kind of answered Venkat's question, because we've got so many customers, different customer journeys, but the moment you kind of identify an event, and then people can rally around, I want this event to happen, so let's focus on that. And Gautam, maybe that's also a clue to your question, right? Now we are trying to, when the business asks for a solution, we are trying to look for, as architects, we are trying to look for a solution for the entire process, and it becomes hard. Now if we take a step back and taking just picking from what Gaurav just said, if we look at the key events which the business user is trying to achieve and have a conversation with them, I think, which is the event that is first you want to happen, and then you kind of, we go after implementing that event rather than solving the entire problem. How can I make that event happen easier? Maybe that time to market, right? I think Gautam had made in his last talk, he said, nice feature, mean time between feature to production, right? So it is the time between a end user asks for a feature and when it is actually usable. Okay, so that's usually even months in the today's agile world. This event-based thinking might help us drastically reduce that. And instead of looking at use case or feature, an event is usually has a business value. What is your thought? Do you think that could kind of, maybe Venkat and Gautam, you can kind of answer. Does that make sense? Is it something that's applicable to you?
Actually, it is, yes. So I agree. So because when we are analyzing our like each customer's journey, and we'll think of when the customer is exiting from our platform. So then we'll start analyzing why he is exiting in the particular event, why he is not proceeding. That could tell us many stories after interacting with customer why you are not proceeding, or like when we are trying to apply when you normally see the event, then we'll get to know. This will help us to improve the product in much faster way, rather than we are analyzing all the customers' journeys and implementing it, right? So that's what I'm thinking. Yes.
Yeah. You're on mute, Gautam.
You are on mute.
Yeah. In my scenario, it's quite different because a business user is also an end customer for other brands or our customers, or for our brand also, right? So basically, if he or she is shopping for Raymond, they might also be an end customer for other brands, right? So in our scenario, they would have already seen such a maybe an implementation already been done in a different brand, and they always say, oh, that okay, why is it taking too much of time? For example, okay, I'll give you one short example, like what Deepak was just quoting. They also want to keep their experience faster, right? In case of e-commerce, so they just click buy and that's it. The product gets delivered within a few times. And a similar kind of a purchase within our IT department takes a longer time because of the process, right? For example, someone wants a Mac. In terms of end user computing, they, as a consumer, go to a Flipkart, order a Mac, and it's there the next day, or in Amazon, and they get it the next day. Whereas as a business person, they actually lose their patience. They say that, okay, I ordered a Mac, I told you it takes so and so time for you to start the procurement process and get the device ready. It takes a lot of time, and where a lot of because of the process we get a hit there, right? So that's where, yeah.
That's actually a very valid thing, right? In the enterprises, we get caught in this cycle. So, but maybe Gautam, Gaurav can correct me. In this case, right, the event, if you look at it, is request for a Mac. Okay. Second, the event will be approval of budget, right? And usually it's the second event which throws the spanner into the works. Would I be right if I kind of, it's a very crude mapping, but Gaurav?
It would be, so logically, yes, order the MacBook, then there is either a budget approval or in an e-commerce scenario, a payment stuff, because you would go and say, I added a Mac to my cart. That's your adding a Mac to the cart is an event. You added a product that you want to order to the cart, and then probably the journey next step would be payment. Or if it's an internal process, maybe in that journey you would have that budget approval thing.
I think budget approval will be one event, and then the other is enterprise to payment, right? So that again is another complex, right? Enterprise payment is one. It's not as simple as a consumer payment, right? You have to move from one company. I mean, even today, when I'm working with enterprises, I'm sure Gaurav also would face, right? there is that payment process is not as evolved as a B2C process. So I still have to raise an invoice. I still have to do a PO. Somebody in the purchase department has to receive that physical PO, and then they have to go and approve it in an SAP, and then the payment cycle will start. Somebody from finance has to approve it. So I think those events, right, like receive PO, then finance approval could be another event.
You know how they've eliminated this entire process? They have lot of organizations now, what they do is they just give you budget and they say bring your own device, right?
Okay.
That's how they have totally short circuited the whole thing. It says, okay, I know you don't like my process and it takes too long. We are just going to give you some money. Go buy your stuff. And you want to buy it from Flipkart, you buy from Amazon, you do it, right? Because that is actually a solution based on that our process does not really work, right? So and actually that is outside the box thinking. It says, okay, how can we just eliminate this process? Maybe that is also one of the approaches maybe thought about in terms of customer journey.
I think so. I think it happened more intuitively from the perspective that, I have to implement the process correct, versus intuitively that thinking shifted to the customer wants a new laptop, how can he get it, right? And what really matters. And then interestingly, it's something like in what you just said, I just realized when you identify some events, if we just take a process perspective, there is a probability that we will go and try to implement that process itself.
Exactly.
The moment when you start thinking as events itself, then we start thinking, can I outsource this event completely or eliminate it from even happening? And then probably that gives more insights. So Gaurav, I just a curious question here, right? I know it's like I'm throwing things very late and suddenly. When you did this exercise, right, have you found a case where you could actually say, you can eliminate this event itself? And that was like one aha moment.
That happens a lot in most of the event storming thing that we do.
Let me just add it some more comment here before you tell that. I think to understand the significance of that. Classically, as architects or enterprises, right, we take a process and we are fixated on all the steps in the process. I have to implement it. This has to be done. There is no way around it. This is the process. It has to be. This is Bible. We never challenge that. And I think this thing, what we are talking about, is very important in kind of not challenging it, but kind of, and we typically challenge a process, the business gives a lot of resistance to it. And the moment you start looking at event and you can eliminate it, and maybe it's like my favorite thing, right? Best code is no code written. So you remove 3 steps which you have to implement. That means another 1,000 lines of code lesser. I think that's the significance of what Gaurav is trying to say. Go ahead, Gaurav.
So definitely it happens. Okay, so let's say if I stick to the same restaurant order placement, okay, before you place an order, there is an event which needs to happen, that somebody in the restaurant needs to give you a menu card. Let's say if it's an in-person experience, and that menu card, how good looking it is, how long and short it is, was part of your experience. But guess what? If I do that event storming with the restaurant owner now, that handing over the menu card event is made redundant. Because now you are supposed to scan a barcode or maybe QR code, and on your phone you have the menu. It doesn't matter whether my menu card, the physical menu card, had fingerprints on it, or whether some curry was on it, page was torn off. All those are gone. So handing over the menu card event is gone in the new process.
Right. And Wow, that's actually pretty brilliant, right? And I think the menu card now can be dynamic. We have had so many cases, right? We'll after a lot of thinking we will decide, and then the waiter will say, "Sir, that is not there today." And you feel like throwing that glass on him because after so much discussion we came to a consensus. And from what you're telling, right, that card could be actually dynamic. Whatever is available, only those items will be visible.
Yeah. So that way, so sometimes you retire an event, but for you to retire an event, you end up taking a change in some other process. From an enterprise perspective, the different processes got streamlined, but you eliminated a particular event or a portion of a process. And the way it starts manifesting in our business is it starts identifying where are the overlaps, where people thought that event belongs to them.
Okay.
And that also means that whenever we identify that event is redundant, you also need to identify who all was subscribing to that event, because now they are not going to get it.
That's beautiful. Actually, you just took something from the enterprise integration space into the real world, right? It's pretty analogous to that, and it's actually true.
It helps, yes. So short answer, yes, it allows. Most of the time we identify events which are redundant or which can be retired. And in our business, depending upon what outcome we want to drive, if it's a outsourcing deal, we want to have a focus on retiring an event, because a redundant event is going to increase my work. But if I can retire an event or a process, probability is high that would equate to a particular application that I can retire. Instead of 100 applications to be managed, I might have 95 applications to manage.
Interesting. So I think then probably that other question also kind of gets addressed, right? Like, how as IT guys, I'm not a domain expert, what can I do? So people who are, IT industry is fairly matured in terms of life cycle management, sunsetting and design. So now they can take that experience on how I sunset, how I ran the old version, how I ran things first, take that experience and kind of move it into the domain world of how to retire a business event, how to sunset it, how to run two in parallel. And I think there the IT guys can really add value of, and I guess the business doesn't have that experience comparatively.
Yeah, see, definitely business doesn't care about, they would just realize in a process that event is redundant or can be retired. The impact of that needs to be analyzed by IT. Okay, so let's say if in a 5-star restaurant, you hired a particular profile who was handing over the menu card. And if you look at that, job is made redundant. How many times you notice that the floor manager is not the one who hands you over the menu card in a high-end restaurant? They had a different persona.
Yeah,
Hosts.
correct.
So I can tell you sometimes when the moment you encounter an event that can be retired or redundant, you'll be surprised how it starts impacting the workforce planning.
Okay.
So just watch out for things. So it's not that easy to retire. You would have to identify who all was subscribing to that event, and is there a workforce impact on it?
I've seen some examples of the restaurant menu example which Gaurav was giving in China. So in China, everything happens through WeChat or so all restaurants, they have a what they call as mini app inside of WeChat. So you just scan the QR code, their app shows up, and then you order from that menu. But even in China, I've seen that whole concept of you want to order something, it is no longer available, it's still there. So they have implemented a lot of those things. Okay. But it's not to the level. It's only they have eliminated the giving of the menu card. You still have to do the other back-end integration of figuring out whether certain things are available or not available. All those things still require a lot of work. So
Yeah, so I would say the home server helped. You're right, Deepak. So once you eliminated, as I said, you eliminate an event, that elimination would result into something that needs to be done. If
Yes,
let's say that restaurant chain just eliminated and ended up with a static menu card, again in a digital form, then somebody has left the money on the table because you have
Exactly.
not made it live with respect to dish of the day or what you have in the kitchen, which would be some additional business, which would initiate a different customer journey where maybe the central actor is your restaurant procurement guy or the chef of the day. So yeah, there are rarely I see where you remove an event and that has not resulted into an additional business or an additional business impact on a different process. And sometimes it's nice because you probably are not looking for that value add. So if in COVID time, I'm sure restaurant would be happy to convert the handing over of menu card to digital, even if it is not connected, because right now they want to save money and ensure as a customer of restaurant you feel a little safer. Because what they are doing is just not getting rid of that person who was handing over the menu card. They created a safe experience for walking in customer by saying, hey, here is one piece which I made redundant so that you don't get in the contact of a paper or something which might have a virus.
Wow, that's actually it represents new business opportunities, right? Is actually a very key point there, because it's not just revenue for the service provider, it is truly enhancing the experience. If you just take that thing like dish of the day or stock out of dish out of stock, both the things enhance the customer experience hugely. So it is, my disappointment is gone and I'm looking forward to something better. And I think it also kind of helps even the back end person, right? Like let's say somebody who's doing the inventory management, it makes their life easier as well, lesser escalations. And I think it sets off a series of good events, provided we start focusing on, I think the key other point is about, it's not just reducing an event, but actively looking at who are the subscribers and how will they be affected. So Gautam, does this thing ring any bells in the what you have seen? Like when you kind of, I'm just putting you again on the spot here, okay? So it's like there's a price to pay for joining this call. So it's like there's a quick test which professors give, right? Pop quiz kind of a thing. So from what we heard, okay, if you kind of look back at your experience of retail and that, if you kind of do a quick mapping, can you think of some event which was redundant and did anything fire? I mean, I could eliminate. I mean, Venkat, you can also think as Gautam is thinking, like, this is an event in the journey which I could have eliminated, which could have made a lot of difference, and who are the subscribers. So I think I have to start another part in this segment. It'll say, okay, assignment for next fortnight call. Most probably people won't turn up. I don't think that's a very good idea for this format.
Yeah, there are a lot. So,
But one thing I can think
also,
of. One thing I can think of, Venkat. By the way, I work with Venkat's team, right?
the journey, you need to think about what is important for the person who is doing that journey. Focus on what is that person experiencing, and figure out those events around that experience. That is my takeaway from today's discussion.
is like, as Gaurav said, it is like a different perspective. So even we are not only like eliminating steps, we are also, by eliminating steps, we are improving the customer experience. Like So this way it could be like eye opener for me actually. So how we can improve the like experience by eliminating the steps. So that is a like double benefit, right? So
Yeah, and I think for me it was kind of I that event and subscription, right, which kind of said, oh wow, it's actually like what we talk in the enterprise integration space. It's actually we can start looking at businesses also rather than just a customer journey. It's events which happen, and that kind of is a nice rallying around point, right? We might have arguments around steps, but I don't think we will have an argument around the event that has to happen. I guess it's very easy for the business to IT alignment, right? Can be built around the event very easily because it's very small and very concrete. I think that's my key takeaway. Gautam?
Yeah, my takeaway is basically you break a problem statement into a number of events, right? So, and each event you are finding if there is a way you can trigger an innovation out of it. At least like what Gaurav was saying, that okay, you eliminate an event, but you still bring replace an event with a different solution or like a digital solution, like you're saying, digital menu card, or you're actually giving a replacement of an existing solution. But it is also triggering innovation when you are actually breaking down your complete problem statement into.
I think during the talk, what I realized is why not run event storming on my own software development lifecycle process and see how do I optimize it, which probably was not on my backlog item. With but probably that's my takeaway, that I should run an event storming with my global delivery lead and say, let's do event storming for our delivery process.
Awesome. Yeah, interesting. Thanks all for joining. Looking forward to you in the next fortnight call.